Listeners, what if a single map could help you understand not just who you are, but why you're here and how to stop abandoning yourself? Well, I'm happy to tell you that one exists. And today on Writing Your Resilience, I'm sitting down with trauma therapist and neurofeedback specialist Jessica Eure for a conversation that is equal parts nerdy, personal, and deeply practical as we talk about our shared passion, which is human design. Human design is a system that draws on astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, quantum physics, and more. And it's been quietly transforming our relationships, our boundaries, and even our creative lives. And we're going to show you what that looks like today. So if you've ever felt like you were living someone else's story or you're interested in claiming more of your own, this episode is for you. Let's get started. Welcome to Writing Your Resilience, the podcast for writers who want to write and live the story that sets them free. I'm your host, Lisa Cooper Ellison, a writer, transformational and trauma-informed coach, story alchemist, and fellow traveler on the winding road of healing and creativity. Each week, I'll share tools, practices, and conversations that will help you let go of what no longer serves you as you create stories that change lives, especially your own. Together, we'll explore how to trust your creative voice, support your mental health and resilience, work with your nervous system and unique design, and stay connected to your deepest calling as a writer, even when life gets messy. It's time, my friends, to write and live the story that sets you free. I'm honored to walk that journey alongside you, one story and one episode at a time. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Writing Your Resilience podcast. I am your story alchemist, Lisa Cooper Ellison, and today I am very excited to be with Jessica Eure. She is here to talk with me about human design because the two of us, we have been nerding out on this for a little while, and it's time to debrief and explore what this means because, listeners, I really feel like this is something that can benefit you. And I don't want to just say that. I want to talk about how it's benefiting our lives so that you get an inside look at what happens. But as always, I like to begin by welcoming my guest, Jessica, and giving her a chance to share a little about herself. So welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. I always have fun with you.
Same. Listeners, we are together in Charlottesville where yesterday was 90 and we're both looking out our windows and going, OMG, how is this the case? It is not just snowing, but the snow is sticking. I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah, I can't deal with it.
I know. Same for me. I'm like, no, bring back the warm weather, but I know it'll be here soon.
Yeah, it will.
So you are a woman who I would say juggles many balls, wears many hats. You pick the metaphor. What do you want us to know about you today?
I've been a trauma therapist for over 20 years, and I specialize in something called neurofeedback. So I help people learn to regulate their nervous system and their brainwaves through operant conditioning or unconscious learning. So I use highly technical neuroscience type interventions to help people to feel more like themselves, honestly. And really, a lot of that is about listening to themselves. And it's interesting because neurofeedback actually uses tones. So there is literally a listening component to that process as well. But ultimately, really seeing people reclaim their own inner compass after years of navigating trauma responses or feeling like they're in survival mode is really gratifying work. And I am always open to new techniques and tools that help me to help other people and support them and myself in that work to be more of who we want to be and feel more like we want to feel.
I love the work that you do, and it is incredible. And listeners, if you don't know about neurofeedback, we're going to put a couple of links into the show notes so that you can learn more about it because it can just do marvels for the brain. And that's especially true if someone has a traumatic brain injury, ADHD. And I'm going to pass the baton to you because you actually know all of the things that it's great for.
Well, it's funny. I don't really treat diagnoses or disorders. I treat people, and people are unique. So, really, neurofeedback is a type of precision medicine. So, when you come to see me, I'm going to look at the unique patterns that are yours based on your activity in your brain. So again, there's a lot of overlays here with human design about sort of looking at a map and then basing what you learn on your unique design. I do that on a nervous system energetic level with brainwaves.
I love that. And so that is a great segue to talking about human design. I think it's been about a year and a half ago. I did an interview with Maha Mamish, who is a human design consultant. She does a lot of work on human design. That's her area of expertise. But because that was a while ago, I think it's probably best for us to reground everyone in case someone is new and they missed that as to what human design actually is before we talk about how it has helped us. Like, what are the benefits? I'm going to start with my definition of human design. You add a little more. And as we do that, we're going to introduce you all listeners to a little of the vocabulary that you will become familiar with if you decide to learn more about your human design. So, I happen to be a generator. A generator is a type within human design, where human design is, as Jessica said, it's a map or a system that helps you understand who you are, why you're here, and how you can go forward into the world. And I think for me personally, an easier way. And so it is a system that is built on other ancient and more modern systems that have existed. So astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, numerology, the chakra system, quantum physics, all of that comes together to give you this unique understanding of who you are. So that's what I've been saying out loud as a definition of what human design is more generally. How do you describe it?
Well, I do think that it's a system or a framework, or as I mentioned, a map to really understand deeper patterns that we move through in our lives and how we uniquely navigate those patterns. So for me, I love a system. I love a structure. I love a container. So, symbolic systems in particular, when we're working with intangible inner workings or archetypal forces, to be able to interact with and manipulate, I don't love that word, but manipulate those energies or forces within ourselves more consciously, having a framework with language to do that really is powerful. Just like narrative therapy, developmental parts work, like developmental needs meeting strategy or internal family systems parts work, we kind of can talk about different aspects of ourselves. They feel so interwoven to me. I feel like any effective system overlays beautifully with other effective systems. And I see that in human design.
I 100% agree. And I love how you talk about it in terms of a system and a map, because there is a visual that you will get if you go down the human design rabbit hole, and that is your body graph. So, your body graph is this physical, visual representation of who you are. And it includes a number of different parts. And because we're keeping this high level today, we're not going to get deep into what those are, but just know that there are different ways that you can look at things. And I'm going to create an analogy that will probably resonate with many of my listeners, because so many of you are storytellers or you're using writing in order to heal yourselves or understand your life. When you do that in writing, the page becomes the map. The story is the map for you to understand something. And what I love about human design and the different trainings that I've taken in human design is that it is just another way to understand your story. And like writing, you can write down the first draft of what you think the story is, and then you get to revise it, where revision is where you make deeper meaning. The more you understand about that body graph or about how human design works, the more you understand this story from this systems level, and then you get to make different decisions.
Yes, awareness is power. I have a quote. I don't even know that it's a quote. I don't know where I found this along the way. A picture is worth a thousand words, but a map is worth a thousand pictures. Because a map shows us where we are and it helps us find our way to where we want to go. And I really feel like human design offers us one of those types of maps where that new awareness equals power and personal power.
I love that. That is a quote I'm going to be pasting on my wall, and I'm going to be thinking about it for a good long while, because it's such a good one. Because, yeah, a map helps us not just see where we are, but where we want to go. And so when you think about your experience with human design, How is that helping you understand the map of who you are and where you want to go? Listeners, I'm pausing this episode for a moment because this is too good not to mention. If you've written a memoir or you're deep in the middle of the memoir writing process and something still isn't working, maybe the story feels scattered or sluggish, or you know the experiences you've had are powerful, but on the page, they're not landing the way you imagined, you're not alone. The gap between lived experience and compelling narrative arc is a structure problem most writers face. But here's the good news. Structure is something you can learn. My Jane Friedman webinar, Find and Refine Your Memoir's Narrative Arc, on April 29th, will give you the tools to understand the shape of your story, identify what's creating that sluggish feeling, and revise with real clarity. The registration link is in the show notes. This one is worth clearing your schedule for, and if you can't, fear not. Everyone will receive the recording, transcript, slides, and workbook.
It's been really profound. As someone who loves personal work, loves a good self help book, is always open to healing and evolving, trying all different kinds of modalities, body work, and everything. I'm kind of still blown away at how much actual transformation has happened for me in a real, tangible way by using this system. It really highlighted for me some of these patterns in my life that I've struggled to change even with a lot of awareness. Not just because it's like, oh, more awareness, but it actually gave me tangible new techniques to try or a new way of looking at it around the bin, less pathologizing, less clinical, get out of that clinical mind and really look at it as just like the way things are flowing. Like you would look at how water is moving through canals and when there's chutes opening or closing. And yeah.
I love that. I've had a similar experience. And what I can say is that I have a pretty significant trauma history, and I've also done a lot of work and a lot of healing. So I would say I'm maybe a trauma thriver. I'm going to coin that, right? I'm a thriver. I am not bound by that old story. And yet there are ways that it has affected me. And so, what I've found for myself is that, I've done tons of therapy. I have explored so many different modalities. I know different things about how I work. So when I looked at my human design body graph, I was like, oh, yeah, people have been telling me this stuff for years around people pleasing, around what is your yes, all of these different questions that we wrestle with. But there was something about seeing it in black and white or color on a piece of paper that gave me new permission and, like you said, new tools to be able to claim my own power, to claim my own experience. And I think this is really important, is that to understand that all experiences are exactly what they need to be and that you are wonderful and perfect and great just as you are. I think that there's a story that happens in the world around how you're supposed to behave, what you're supposed to do, what your life experience is supposed to be like. And when yours doesn't line up, it can feel like there's something wrong with you or like you're broken. But when I work with this with myself or I work with this with my clients, I really get to see the beauty of the unique individual experience and how they're all needed in our world.
Yes. I love the idea that Atash mentioned in your interview with her of transforming a disorder into order.
Yes.
That just kind of blew my mind. I was like, it's so simple, but it's so beautiful. And seeing how it's the same pattern, but now you can navigate it in this healthy way where you can thrive, like you said. And for me, it's really about not saying yes too fast and really getting in touch with what is an aligned commitment for me, what's sustainable, not overextending. And that has freed up a ton of energy for me. And that I think is something that any creative would want, because if you are just leaking energy in every part of your life, then you don't have a lot left for your creativity.
Yeah, I am saying that all of the time, that you have to be able to say no to other things in order to say yes for yourself, because you cannot create from an empty well. And so many of us are living lives where we have empty wells. And life can be tough. There are a lot of pressures that we have that are outside of our control. And yet, There are a number of them that are inside our control. And the more we can own that and make different choices around the things that are in our control. And I'm going to say, listeners, I know that this is an issue for you because I'm raising my hand and saying it's one for me too, is that we can overschedule ourselves. And just like you were talking about, say yes, because the head tells us, well, that's what's expected of me, or people will be disappointed, or all of the stories that we build, or this is what a successful, productive person does. And then we get ourselves in these situations where we don't have the energy. And then we have this deep frustration because we're not doing what we want to do, or we're not living out our passions or our purpose.
Absolutely. And I think what I've seen, and what I think we've seen with some of our other friends in our study group around human design, is that as we focus on this and really sit with what's an aligned decision for me, what's a yes, what's a no, what's a not now, that multiple of us are making some pretty big changes in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of pivoting going around, I would say, where people are thinking about the careers they have or where they're living, so many things. And I see this with clients. I was working with a client who had an issue with overscheduling, which is very common. And suddenly she was telling me about all of these no's and how saying no led to this amazing opportunity that she would not have been able to say yes to if she had been booked already. And that was huge.
Yeah. There is a level of trusting that if you follow what's right, if you're listening to your inner guidance, then you don't have to future predict. You can just respond to what you're being given, and that the right things will come to you.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you a deep question and I'm going to answer it as well. When it comes to that trust stuff, right? So important, so essential with everything. What makes it difficult for you to trust? What is that fear piece for you?
That's an interesting one. And I've delved into my design to look also specifically at where that's at. There's some conditioning, cultural conditioning, family conditioning around what safety is. And those are a lot of times faulty narratives about how you get safety. Safety is acquiescing to others' needs. Safety is ignoring my own needs. Safety is not being rejected, even if it would be better to be rejected by that person, and really looking at like, okay, so I'm not trusting because what am I scared of? I'm scared of being abandoned by the tribe, ultimately, for me. And so I have to look at what are the narratives, the conditioning, the trauma pattern, whatever system you're in, there will be a different word for it. But looking at those beliefs and really examining them and deciding if I agree with those as reality.
I would say ditto to everything that you said. A lot with conditioning, a lot with family conditioning. And if you don't know what we mean by conditioning, we're just talking about the stories that people tell you about who you are and how you take them in. Do you have a different way of talking about it?
I mean, we talk about operant conditioning in science, right? I mean, operant conditioning is just a punishment and reward. So you get punished if you do the thing that the people around you don't want you to do. You get rewarded if you do what they want you to do. And what they want you to do or not do isn't necessarily what's right for you.
Yeah. And so that conditioning can be unconscious or conscious. I think most of it is unconscious. For me, there are two pieces that I'll add to this is that one, I'm a person who has a gate 19, which if you don't know what gate 19 is, that's totally fine. It is this like Achilles heel of sensitivity, right? Very, very sensitive. And the piece that is most difficult for me is that I can be very sensitive to criticism. It can be very hard when people tell me I need to do things differently or I have displeased them. So, so hard. And so, what I found is that in the past, what I would do is I would try to be perfect. I would try to do everything perfect, try to be all of the things to all of the people, put all the ducks in a row, all of that, so that I could feel safe and not feel that experience of pain or anxiety around that sensitivity. And what I have learned is that instead I go, oh, yeah, I know that's the way I am. And so when I start feeling bad or going down my own little boohoo rabbit hole of like, oh no, they don't like me and I did a bad job or whatever the story is, right? Because we all have them. I can go, oh, there it is. There it is. And then I can take a few deep breaths and I can give myself an actual physical hug. So if you're watching me on YouTube, that's what I'm doing, or do something else that can soothe me because I know that's true. It's like not something I'm making up my head. It's just part of who I am. And that sensitivity serves me in so many ways, but that's one that can be a challenge. The other thing is that one of the reasons why people really love working with me is I have this deep mama bear energy. I can make the tribe feel safe. I want to care for the tribe. And that is definitely one of my strengths. It's one of the things people really love. But the thing about that is that all strengths can have a shadow side, is that I can ignore my own needs in order to take care of the tribe. Knowing that that's a piece of my experience, when I start to feel frustrated, which is an emotion that is very important for me to pay attention to, I can pause and take a deep breath and say, oh, how am I caring for myself? Am I over giving to the tribe? Right, to everyone else and under giving to myself? What do I need to do to make a different decision?
The other day, I was like, wait a minute. I've been deep diving on this human design thing since last April, going down every rabbit hole, filled up pages and pages and pages of notes, read books, all the things. And I was like, I think I can boil this down to one word, one magic word for myself, and it's pause.
Yeah.
It's just pause, ask, is this mine? Pause, ask, is this pressure or is this inspiration? Am I just feeling an urge to relieve a pressure or is this actually a yes? Pause enough just to let it sit in your body and move around through all of these centers and spaces and parts, however you want to say it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, pausing is so important, and we live in a world where it's like, "Snap your fingers, come on, give us the answer. We gotta do it, we gotta do it," and that does not serve us in so many ways. So, we've talked a little about how this works for us personally, some of the things that have helped us, but when you think about relationships, which is something we've also talked about, and we both have our own little stories around that, how has understanding human design helped you with your relationships with other people? And I say that because human design was originally developed to help parents work with their children and raise their children in a way that affirmed who their children are, even if how those children behave or how they operate is very different from their parents.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it definitely highlighted patterns that I was already aware of. But again, it had me looking at them in this different way rather than, oh, I always get stressed out when my partner has a big emotion. I've found ways to work with that. But then there was some kind of like relief in just knowing, oh, he has an emotional wave. He has these big feelings he has to write out and he knows how to do it. He's cool with it. And he can just say, I'm upset or I'm sad, but because I am open in that way, I'm receptive to emotions. I pick them up. And then my body has always had a hard time knowing whose that emotion was and what I should do with it. And, there's a lot of conditioning around taking care of everybody else's emotional state. And, I've done a lot of work on those things, but just looking at it as a flow of energy and seeing that the system of human design validated very clearly what I was very aware of already, and then was like, hey, here are some really basic things you can do. Have your partner just state that they're having an emotion. And then you could be like, that is theirs. It is not mine. I am not responsible for it. It's coming into me, and that's okay. That's how I operate, but I can just let it go back out. It just gave me permission, again, like you said earlier, to be the way that I am, and it's not wrong, but then also new ways to work with that energy.
Yeah, I love that. And that's very similar to my own experience because I'm an extreme empath. I can soak in everybody else's feelings. You don't even have to tell me what you're feeling, and I will feel it for you. I will if I don't watch out. It's so ingrained. And what I found is that, yeah, my partner also has an emotional wave. if he can tell me what that is and just say, yep, I'm having an emotion. He doesn't even have to name it sometimes, just be like, yep, it's there. Then I have a choice to say, okay, well, number one, I'm going to let you have that. And number two, I'm going to take a break and be somewhere else because I find that for my own sensitivity, I can totally let you have your experience, but I need to protect mine. And that is a very easy way for me to navigate that. And I find that the more I understand about human design and I can begin to be in interactions with people and go, oh, this person is like this or this person's like that. And I can radically accept that person. And if there's a part that doesn't align with me, right, it's not for my best interest or it creates a frustration
Mhm.
or another experience, I don't have to judge that person. I don't have to see them as bad or
Mhm.
whatever. I can just be like, yeah, it's not in alignment and I'm going to step back. I can honor all of who they are and the beauty of it, and while also honoring my own experience. And that is very different from how I was raised.
Yeah, and for me, it's interesting because my technique is slightly different with my emo husband, is to say, "Do you need connection or quiet right now?" When he tells me he's having an emotion. And the first time I tried it, he knew. It was like that was the most natural question ever. And he said, "Well, I need a little connection for 5 minutes and then I would like quiet." It was like he was placing an order at a restaurant. And it was just like, oh
Yeah.
my God, this is so easy.
Yeah, I love that you just shared this tool. The more tools we have, the easier it is to live our lives. We can navigate so much clearer and easier. And what I would say is that if you are a trauma survivor who grew up in an environment where conflict was scary, or you developed a habit of being conflict avoidant, knowing that you have these different tools, just simple things be saying, like, I feel like you may be having an experience or a feeling. And do you need connection or do you need quiet? Or do you need space? Can alleviate some of those symptoms. And that's another thing I just love is there's so many tools and so much language that we can use to help each other with our experiences and radically accept who that person is while also accepting who we are and our own needs. If I would say anything about myself is that I do not abandon myself as much now that I have human design. Are there times still? Probably because I'm human and I'm learning, but it's so much better.
Yes, we did this really cool exercise in our study group where we were meditating on our different centers. They're like chakras, right? And the energy that I got from one of my centers was of an ox plowing a field. And I've just been working with that so much because it's basically like, is this the right field? Do I own this field that I'm plowing? Like, who's going to get the produce that comes out of this field? Like, there's a lot you can do with that. This ox doesn't know what he's doing. He just does whatever I tell him to do. Now, do I want to tell him to do this?
Yeah, I love that. Listeners, we would invite you to our human design study group if we could, because it is so much fun and the snacks are amazing. We can say so because we provide the snacks. But there's so many different story-driven ways that you can work with this, and what I hope you're hearing is that the more you understand who you are, the more you embrace your own sovereignty, the more room you're gonna have for your own creativity, and so instead of experiencing those conflicts around like, "Oh my gosh, I really wanna have time for my book, but I don't have time for my book. Why is this?" And having all that angst and frustration, you can pause and then figure out what's going on and then identify if it's something you can change or not. And if it is, make different choices. So, this is going to lead to one of the things we talked about beforehand, which was consciousness. You have some really cool things to say about consciousness and human design. And I'm curious if you can, number one, tell us what consciousness is from your perspective. I know, big order, right? Very tall order, but tell us what that is and how you work with it or how this is helping you see it in a different way.
I think that consciousness has always been something that I've been drawn to, and studying psychology and kind of working in the neuroscience field and understanding the accepted paradigm in science is that our brain matter, the physical stuff of our brain, generates our consciousness or our awareness of ourselves. And I don't prescribe to that particular paradigm, which is even kind of scary to say as a clinician, as a science person, because that paradigm is so strong that you become an outsider immediately if you deviate from that basic paradigm. And many people operate in it without even knowing that they're in it. There are other theories about where our consciousness comes from and what it is. And does it persist, say, after our brain is no longer here? The framework that I resonate the most with actually came out of the work of William James, and it's the transmission theory of mind. That theory talks about our brain more like a receptor and transmitter. Like a radio station may send a signal out, it may receive signals and it may transmit signals. So that's how I see our brain, is it's a waylay station for our consciousness, and we are able to experience then our consciousness through a physical body, through our nervous system.
I love that. And one thing I want to add to what you're saying is it's something that Stacy Simmons talked about in my interview with her around memory, is that a lot of what science does is it offers a framework based on what we know now and how things are working. So, for instance, she would talk about the body and the brain as a machine back when the Industrial Revolution started and then evolved to like the computer. Now that we're in the computer age, it's like, well, it's like that, or it's like Chat GPT. I hear people talking about how the brain works or consciousness is AI. It keeps evolving. But what I love about what you're saying is like there are different models, different ways of understanding, and science cannot explain all of our experiences that we're having right now because science has not caught up to what those experiences are.
And as long as science continues to be reductionist, it won't. It won't catch up. And so for me, I find that the human design system and its orientation towards the body graph as a receptive structure that processes information and energy as it moves through it overlays perfectly with the idea of our brain as a receptor that our consciousness flows through. And in both models, our nervous system is acting as that interface that is filtering that field through all of our particular flavor we bring, through our conditioning, through our uniqueness, and expresses it through our thoughts and our feelings and our body awareness. And so, all of the work that I enjoy doing with other people in my practice really has to do with getting back in touch with what is your body telling you. When we have trauma, we often disconnect from those signals. And so getting out of survival mode and finding that trust in our internal cues and reconnecting with ourselves by slowing down and by looking inward.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to pick up on something you just said, slowing down. So important and yeah, so counter to the way our world works. And I'm curious, just in this year that we have been working with human design and studying it, so much has changed. What do you think your life would be like now if you had had human design 5 or 10 years ago? How might things be different?
I've thought about that. Of like, oh, if only I could have gone back to my 18-year-old self and been like, look, you say yes way too fast. Like, I mean, just like, short story, I feel like it would have saved me a lot of suffering. But then again, we all have our lessons and our paths, and who's to say, obviously. So it came to me at the right time, but work around healthy boundaries, work around effectively listening to my intuition. Do you know how many years I have spent really trying to better listen to my intuition and running into the same snags with doing that? And I finally feel like this system is what's giving me some really precise, effective strategies to improve that connection with my intuition.
Oh, I love that because, yeah, it has made a big difference in my intuition as well, in understanding what gets in the way of my intuition. I think about this a lot. Like you, I think that things come to us when it's time and when we're ready to receive them. So I don't spend a lot of time going like, "Oh, I wish my life had been so different." However, wisdom does come from looking back, and there are a couple of things that I would say for myself that were huge ahas that I go, "Wow, how would life have been like? What it would be like if I didn't have that?" And one is that I have spent most of my life trying to prove myself. Spent a long time trying to prove my value and working too hard because I just had it in my mind, and our society definitely conditions us to believe this, that if I just worked hard enough or used the right model or did the right things, I would have this outcome that would make me feel more valuable inside myself, but also like other people would see me as valuable. And as a result, I was discounting the ways that others already saw me as valuable, and I was discounting my own internal value. So that's definitely something that would be different. If I could go back to my 18-year-old self, certainly say that. And then the other thing is that, all right, if you are between the ages of 38 and 42, and you feel like you're not doing life well because all of these things keep happening to you and you keep trying to work through it, and it's just like you're hitting another wall and another wall and another wall, and you're like, WTF, what is happening to me? You're not doing life wrong. I really began to understand how that was working for me, how that was a period of deep change and transformation for the better that was also difficult. So that was when I had Lyme disease and I was really sick, had to leave the workforce. And there were certain things I found in my design. I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I was supposed to be doing. I wouldn't have fought that. I wouldn't have fought that. I would have told myself, yeah, this is the time. This is the work. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's not what I would choose, but I'm not doing life wrong. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm okay. And so, again, if you are in that space and you feel like you're doing life wrong because life keeps coming up with all kinds of obstacles, hang in there. Hang in there. It will change. And here's what you can do: learn to trust your intuition, learn to pause and figure out what is truly for your best and highest good and what is in alignment for you. And the more you can do that, the more you're going to come out on the other side and be like, whoa, holy cow, I love the life I'm living.
Less forcing, more flow.
Yes. So much more flow, so much less. I would say forcing and fighting. Those are my two. At least I would
Mhm.
say those are the words for me. Man, I was putting my dukes up all the time. Life would come and I'd be like, no, it's not going to be this way. And then, of course, like I would try to force a solution too.
Yeah, it's very interesting because the book Rest is Resistance came into my world around the same time all this was. And I was like, oh, this idea of rejecting the grind culture and all of this work around laziness does not exist, that book as well. That theme of like, who are we grinding up in grind culture? Ourselves. And so when you look at how you uniquely work, then you can find that flow. And it might not look like what our society says it should look like to be productive and valuable. But when you can just be with that authentically, then you'll be more productive, happier, more abundant than ever.
Amen to that. And I can definitely say my creative life has transformed. I mean, here's just a simple example. Last year, I had started the year feeling kind of sad about my creative life, about how I didn't have enough time. I'd had a couple of setbacks that were making me question what I did. And I just decided I'm just going to write for the sake of writing and for the joy of it. That was it. And the more I got clear on that and operated from that space through human design, the more a project came to light. And now I have this draft of this project. And this is the thing I'm going to say, it's the best stuff I've ever written. And I am so proud of it. And yes, listeners, it is still a hot mess and I am still working on it. But I'm like, this is fucking good. And it's great to feel that way.
That is so cool.
Well, this has been so much fun, and I have loved having you on. And who knows, you may be back on again. Now, listeners, if you are interested in finding out what your human design is and you just want to see what your body graph is, you can get a free copy of your body graph by going to my website, and the link will be in the show notes. And if you're like, okay, now I have this information, what do I do with this as a creative? You can join my Substack and you can participate in my Human Design for Writers sessions where you're going to learn practical skills and you will learn about human design over time. So you do not get overloaded with a bunch of vocabulary, so that you can use this to really empower yourself and to embrace my word of the year, which is sovereignty. If people want to learn more about you, Jessica, they want to see what you're up to, or maybe they just have a question, what are the best ways for them to reach you?
Well, they can go to my clinic's website, which is virginianeurofeedback.com, all spelled out, or jessicaeure.com. So Jessica Eure is my professional mentoring for people who want to learn EEG and neurofeedback. And then my clinic is about the services that I offer to people. They can also just email me at jessica@virginianeurofeedback.com.
And all of those links will be in the show notes. So it will be very easy for you to access them. And Jessica, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's been really fun.
Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about Jessica, please see the show notes for this episode. And if you'd like to take our conversation a little deeper, try this writing prompt. Think of a time when you said yes, when everything in your body was saying no. Go ahead and write that scene. What were the pressures, the voices, the fears that drove that yes? Then write the version where you paused, listened, and said no instead. What becomes possible in that space? Share your answer as a YouTube comment. I'd love to hear about your experience and any questions you'd like me to tackle in future shows. And speaking of your thoughts on the show, I'd love to give a shout out to Nancy Keeler Writes Music Arts, Doreen Francis, Renee Hill 6795, Kathy Life 1, Helen Carson 5221, and Megan Justice for sharing your thoughts on my recent episode with Stacy Simmons and on my episode on creative intuition. Your messages made my day. It was so wonderful to hear from you. And listeners, if you haven't reached out to the show, you can make my day by leaving a comment on YouTube. I would love to hear from you. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. I couldn't do this podcast without your support. If you love this episode, here are 3 simple ways that you can keep this show thriving. 1, subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. 2, leave a 5-star review so others can find the show. 3, join my engaged dynamic community by signing up for the Writing Your Resilience newsletter. As a thank you, you'll receive a free copy of Ditch Your Inner Critic, 5 tools to transform self-doubt into self-support. Until next time, remember that your story matters. As you write and connect with the truest, most authentic version, you become not just the writer, but the person you're meant to be. And that, my friends, is the real freedom writing can offer.